Welcome to Dr. M's Vodcast, a vodcast with a mission to connect continuous improvement professionals across the world.
Got it. Namaste, so that I don't make any biases of saying good afternoon, good evening, good night, etc., etc. So namaste, welcome to Dr. M's Lounge, and that's Jackie for you, Dr. Jackie Graham, and I've passed on the prelude, but then let me just start standard work. So here we go. Okay, am I visible?
Yes, you are. Yeah, can see your screen. I can see a curtain, black one rather than red one.
Well, I anticipated you're going to put a red one, so here we go. So welcome to Dr. M's Law. This is the 13th episode, and this is dedicated to my sensei, Masaki Imai. And what we're going to talk about is why Dr. Deming's theories are more relevant today. You heard the prelude from Dr. Jackie, and that's Dr. Deming for you. And you have read her profile, but what I really like is that she's a qualified chemical engineer, doctorate in statistics and quality management from University of Salford, England. She makes me nervous, as I always. Yeah, Jackie, you make me nervous. That you were awarded the Juran Medal, and the closest I can get all my audience to Deming is through Jackie, because she worked 5 years as an intern for the last 5 years of his life, and that's luck, as she says. But then we are lucky that we got Jackie, and you can ask her any questions. And on the subject, she has put up the 7 deadly diseases, like all of us know: lack of consistency of purpose, emphasis of short-term profits, evaluation of performance, merit rating, annual review, mobility of management, job hopping, management by use of visible figures with no consideration no consideration for figures that are unknown and unknowable, excessive medical costs, excessive costs of liability, swelled by lawyers. That you have read all this in the prelude. I'm just getting a link so that you all can carry on from there. So here we go. Jackie, over to you.
Okay. All right. So do you want me to just, shall we talk about those questions? Do you want to ask me those questions and I'll talk to them?
Yeah, sure.
Maybe I explain why I use the 7 deadly diseases first. So a lot of people talk about the 14 points, and they talk about the system of profound knowledge. I think what was interesting for me was Dr. Deming said, if we don't follow these ideas, then these are the deadly diseases that result. And the fact that they're also, relevant to today, I think tells us that we haven't done a great job of that, right? That we've got those deadly diseases, the lack of constancy of purpose, the emphasis on short-term profits, the use of numbers to evaluate performance, whether that be people, organizations, or whatever. Mobility, particularly senior people moving around. We see a lot of that. Using visible figures only, not taking time to understand culture and the unknown and unknowables. And then the ones that are getting more and more grip around the world. So when I initially worked with Dr. Deming, I didn't see excessive medical costs or excessive costs of liability. Neither of those were really an issue, particularly in Australia, and they now really are big issues in Australia. And I'm seeing that becoming more and more of an issue worldwide. So I think that's very sad that we seem to have gone backwards in the deadly diseases. And I think that something very important about this is that they are a disease, and people catch it. Right. So they see somebody else doing it. Oh, that's a good idea. And then they go off and do that. And these diseases are just getting worse and worse around the world as kind of expanding these ideas, which are not the ideas we want to promote. So this is why I think Deming's philosophy and ideas are more relevant today than even when he was uttering them. I think he could see what was coming. He could see these deadly diseases, and he could see the things that people needed to do that he put in the 14 points and started talking about in profound knowledge later in his life. And he wanted people to focus on those. He was very concerned the issues I've just been talking about would get a handle and start going around the world, which is actually what's happened. So I guess his concerns have been realised. So I guess it's our job to stop it, right?
Jackie, can you put the 7 deadly diseases on the slide so that...
Yep. Hang on a sec, let me just... There we go.
Look, one thing is that...
I'm going to find it in Zoom. You've just got to take into account that. We're going to... Oh, there it is. Oh, I can't share. It says I can't share.
I won't leave you there. I just permitted you to share, Jackie. So.
All right. It didn't want me to share initially. Can you all see that? Yeah.
We are very comfortable chatting, right? So you know the is Jackie, and you get the best out of her.
So there were some questions asked. We want to talk. We can talk about those, but this was just my way of saying, you know, here's proof that they are relevant today, because look at these. We do have these problems. So I think some of the questions related to that. So we could go on to some of those questions if you like. I can stop sharing so I can find them.
No, I can project it for you. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So if anybody's got any questions, please ask. This is your chance. Ask.
Okay. Okay. Here's a question from Colin. She is not in, but why am I doing this? See, I'm also not comfortable with Zoom at times, but
I can share it if you want. Do you want me to share it? Oh, you got
it. Colin says that where do you think Deming would have taken the failure mode of people or organizational behavior following new economics? Where was he headed?
Can we finish with this one? Sorry. Can we go to Sitong Shen's question first? Because I think maybe it will...
I will do that.
Sorry. I've got it.
There we go.
There it is. I obviously don't come from America, but I've spent a lot of time in America. So the question is, since Dr. Jackie comes from American Society for Quality with deep insights to American businesses, culture, to adapt Kaizen, the question is how to handle the extreme willful blindness, especially to some American businesses, where highlights growth mindset and caring mindset, but the huge execution gaps on the customer-facing front line to leave many problems to the customers, but the customers have to use some service of the business services, at least until now. So I think what's really interesting is we've lost sight of who the customer is. I would almost add it as a disease, because what I'm seeing is people are very focused on the customer as being the shareholder, the board, not the external customer who's using the product and service. So I think, you know, we're losing sight of who the direct customer is and why the organization is there, what our sense of being is, that what is the purpose of the organization. And I see a lot of this where the focus is on how do we get quarterly good results that we can put onto the share market so our stock value goes up. And that's often at the sacrifice of the long term. And it's often at the sacrifice of the customer. So we can see that we're focusing on a different, you could describe board shareholders, stockholders as a kind of customer, which they are, but they're not the customer of the product and service. And if you want to be successful, you need lots of customers of your products and services. And by doing that, you will automatically make those people happier because you will be growing and making more money. And we seem to have forgotten the mechanism of doing it and got more focused on the shareholders and what they want and the board and what they want, and less on of the focus on the final customer. Do people see that?
Yeah. Hi, Jackie.
Yeah, this is your
Uh,
question, right?
yeah, that's exactly one you touched, but the reality is this. I practice the Kaizen on Jinba Kaizen on customer-facing frontline of the organization over 8 years, so I evidenced almost everything. The reality is that the management and the senior leadership do know the benefits of Kaizen, do want to practice Kaizen at Jinba, do have some endless efforts, but yeah, the emphasis is but the reality is that in the face of the fixed metrics, quota-driven, yeah, because that's a business, not the clarity, right? They take the responsibility for the shareholders, for the stakeholders, they have to report that. So that one in the operational level, finally those kind of things the yeah we know this dead end loop, and finally the one of the feedback from the middle management is that, hey, we have to run the operation of this, not like ideal to do something cannot earn the profits. When you really take care of the customer, when you really true courage to do the right thing, to take care of them, to solve the problem. So the program finally became a balance because they are not bad. They are the management. Management is manage things, but they lack of lead the people courage. So it
Mhm.
means they lose the balance. They try to do something right, but finally they have to suffer the pressure. So this is a reality we evidenced happening in the local US. Over the time, finally the result is that they have to abandon the knees to those kind of short-term goals. And all the formal long-term efforts we hard accumulated will quickly gone with the wind or being recited. Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things that is very easy for people to react to is data and numbers. And what we're very good at doing is drawing up profit and loss statements, balance statements, and showing the financial health of an organization. And that then tends to drive it because there it is, it's nice and easy, it's easy for people to understand. And we're not good at explaining what that long term is. So, if you turn around to somebody and say, well, where is that going in the long term? You know, then they're trying to estimate what their profitability is going to be over decades. We don't do that. We don't do that, do we? We don't say it over that kind of time frame. But if you want to have true purpose in your organization, you need to understand where you're going as an organization, who your customers are, what their needs and expectations are, and how you're going to direct and lead your organization in the direction that will give your organization the best chance of fulfilling those customer needs. So
Yeah.
what they're responding to is a something that they can see very easily. What we have to do is think about how can we make it more visible, how the customers are feeling, how the customers and whether their needs and expectations are being met, and how do we get that information to that same group of people so that they see things in more than one dimension.
Yeah. Another more practicable scenario about this situation is ongoing because we are living in the agentic AI age. So
Mhm.
past 2 years, we all noticed that how many AI illusions we all went through. So this kind of mindset and daily practice in the operational level also impact the ongoing process of the AI because those kind of short-term behaviors as driven by the perfects, if implied to the AI, we will do some negative things against the AI eccentrics and the integrity. But this time, the thing is more impact to the end user's privacy about their data, how we practice a responsible AI. Those kind of things will waive the business commitment to the responsible AI, that principles based on the short term. So, but the final sacrifice may be uh, not turnable back because customer data practice is about the daily privacy. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So what we have to get them so AI is either fantastic or really bad, depending on how well it's done, depending on whether it's got, it can be an automating of a bad process. Unless you understand the purpose and you understand the system and how it works and how AI can assist that, it should be seen as part of the Kaizen process. AI should be part of that because we need to understand all those fundamentals before we try and put AI into it, right? And I think one of the big mistakes that are made is that AI for automating bad systems. And what we need to do is actually be improving those systems before we apply the AI, not applying the AI to a bad system. So we need to think about all those things. In terms of, I mean, in terms of information that we're gathering on people, I mean, it's getting seriously out of hand. I think we all agree with that, right? That at the moment, Australia is going through an election process. And so we've got an election on Saturday. And something that might surprise you is you have to vote as an Australian. It's 100% compulsory. Unless you were in hospital in an ICU and not able to vote because you're unconscious, you have to vote. And if you don't vote, you get fined, right? So it's actually and it's a significant fine. It's not a small fine. So everybody's got to go and everybody's got to vote, right? And what we're seeing is that these wonderful little mobile phone devices are now somehow people are getting hold of your number and we are getting inundated now with political messages directly to our phone. I've had around 20 today so far. And I was still getting them at 11, 12 o'clock last night. So that's just complete breakdown of privacy. And there's going to become a point where people go, no, this is enough, right? And people will start to litigate against this. And that's starting to happen, but I think it will happen a lot more. And that we'll have this litigation against, there's a lot of collection of information for the sake of collecting it. What are you doing with it? Is it actually useful? What do you do with that? Right? When you go to and to the grocery store or the supermarket, whatever you like to call it, quite often they're collecting information on exactly what you're buying and what your buying habits are and all that kind of stuff so that then they can promote things to you, right? But they're also selling that information to other organizations. At what point do we say, hey, this is just not. I think we're getting close to that point, right? Because how does that fit into them as an organization? They can destroy their reputation with their customers and by selling the information to somebody else who misuses that information. And then what does that do to your image and your organization? Again, it's about being in touch with your customers and what your customers expect. And I think this is a big problem right now is we're getting, with AI, the distance between ourselves and the customer is getting greater. Yeah, we all get more surveys to do. I don't know about you guys, but I can't do anything without being asked to do a survey about it, right? So Dr. M knows I'm very passionate about Australian rules football. I went to a game last weekend. I've had 3 surveys from one game of football. One is from the team I barrack for. We call it barracking in Australia. One is from the stadium, and one is from the ticket, the group that sold me the ticket. So I've got 3 surveys about one football game. I mean, and what is this information actually useful? Is anybody doing anything with it? Is it of any value? It's getting very it's easy to do this stuff, and so we're doing it. But if you're not doing anything with the information, why are you doing it? And what impression does that give to your customers? Does that give a positive or a negative impact on customers?
Thank you. Thank you, Jackie. Yeah.
Mustafa, you have got a related question. Can you ask that question directly? Mustafa?
Okay. Hello, Dr. Jackie. How are you?
I'm good, Mustafa. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm from Egypt, by the way, and this is my first attempt for me, this webinar, okay? In today's era of digital transformation and data-driven decision making, how do you reconcile Deming's warning against managing by visible figures only with the current obsession with KPIs and dashboards?
I think what we're very good at doing is saying all the wonderful things that we can get from KPIs and dashboards. We're not very good at saying, and these are the gaps. So again, we need to look more holistically. When you look at holistically at the organization, there are some things you cannot measure, right? And there is a lack of acceptance that there are things you can't measure. But if you measure the things you can measure really well and control those, it gives you more time to concentrate on those things that are difficult to measure as the unknown and unknowables and get a better handle of where they're at. Like measuring an organizational culture is really difficult. Deming was really good at it, right? So Deming would go into an organization and he would chat to all sorts of people from different parts of the organization. And by the time he went and saw the leaders, he knew how that organization felt. He knew what the culture of that organization was, often better than the leaders did in the room, because he just spent time with people. We're not good at doing that right now. We're not good at spending that time and having that connection with people. One of the best people I've ever worked with in my life is a guy called Jack Falcon, and he was part of General Motors. And I was at a factory in Liverpool in England, and there was a lot of us. There was well over 1,000 people. Jack would walk. He would park his car in the employees' car park at the back of the factory, not in the manager's spot he had at the front of the building. And he would walk his way through to the shop floor. As he was walking through, he'd be wishing people happy birthday. He knew everybody's name, which was just incredible. He did know everybody's name, and he learned them very quickly. I saw him at it. It was brilliant. But he knew when people's birthdays were, when people had been sick, when people had a sick family member, and he connected with his workforce. And so they felt they had a connection with him. They would talk to him and tell him about the problems that were going on the shop floor because people felt like they had a genuine connection. He was very good at connecting with people, and that's something we don't do well. Something that we need to work on. People need to work on their connecting skills and listening to people. So the unknown and unknowables, KPIs and dashboards are great at summarizing the things we can measure well. Just got to make sure they're actually doing what you think they're doing, right? So sometimes I've come across a lot of dashboards which are actually giving a misrepresentation of what's going on. And I'm sure some of you have had that same experience where it's like everything's green and everything's looking really good. And then when you drill down, you discover, oh, well, we tweaked that number because it wasn't looking good and we didn't want anybody to be worried about that. And you start to uncover it, and it's like peeling down an onions, and you find that the core is not in a good hand. All right, the core's going rotten, but the outside of the onion still looks quite good on the KPIs and the dashboards, right? And this is one of the problems Deming used to talk about, that if you push a number hard enough, people will do anything to achieve it. So you've got to think about the way you're driving data and the way you're using data. Is it in a good, positive way, or is it actually doing damage into your organization? So you've got to make sure that people use it well and that the right questions are asked, right? Data is only useful if people are asking questions. And that's what data's about. That's what Deming told us about. When you study Verity and you study numbers and you study data, it's not the control charts or whatever you use. You should use control charts. If you don't, please do. But it's the questions that come from those charts that really inform you about how to proceed. Because it's the questions, it's the connection, it's the unknown and unknowables that the measures give you a clue as to something that's going on and enables you to go off and investigate. Does that make sense?
Yes. Thank you.
More questions? We can go to Colleen's if you want.
Yeah, we do.
So Colleen's was, where do you think Deming would have taken the failure mode of people or organizational behavior? Oh, you're going to pull it up. I can finish my cup of tea while you do that.
Yeah, just 1 minute.
That's the one we did. So you just need to go to the other one. It's the next one. Well, in the set you sent me, it was the next one.
Yeah, but the same thing has happened with me. It got stuck.
I'll share. I'll share my screen.
Okay.
Hopefully is that sharing? Yeah, I'm not very good at Zoom. There you go.
We're sharing
Really
now.
not very good at Zoom. Okay, so this is where do you think Deming would have taken the failure mode of people or organizational behavior following new economics? Where was he headed? Deming was what he was really passionate about in the last couple of years of his life was understanding how people gain knowledge, gain information. I'll stop sharing so we can see each other. About how do people grow? How do people gain knowledge? It was a huge passion of his. And through that, you develop organizational learning. So a lot of people get confused by why Deming says that it needs to come from the outside. I'm sure you're all familiar with this, or maybe not. That Deming said that if you want to make improvement, you want to understand, and you want to create learning, it needs to come from the outside. And often people get very upset about the fact, well, what is he saying, that we should hire consultants? No, not necessarily. No, that's not what he's saying. What he's saying is that why aren't you doing it already? If you've got the knowledge and you've got the ability in your organization, why aren't you doing it already? Right? So something getting in the way of you doing it already. Yeah. So you need help to remove that obstacle. Maybe it's a lack of knowledge. Maybe it's as an obstacle in the that's stopping you from doing it. But you need something to spur you into action. And that's what he was talking about. So he was really working hard at trying to understand how people learned, how people develop, and how do we get organizations to learn and develop. So that was where he was really passionate, and that's where he was headed. And I think that's the area that needs, when you think of this, the system, are we all familiar with the system of profound knowledge? Is everybody familiar with it? So if you think about the system of profound knowledge, so those of you who are not familiar with it, it's kind of the cornerstone of Dr. Deming's thinking. So if I just give you a quick history lesson, Deming developed the 14 points in the 1980s. But then the question came, well, he was 80 at the time. And the questions were, well, how do we develop the 14 points in 2050? What would those 14 points look like? Would they be any different? How will we know? What thinking are you using to determine what these points should be. And that's how he developed profound knowledge. That was what spurred him to say, well, these are the areas that I'm thinking about. These are the things that are on my mind that I think we need to work on. And this is the thinking that I've used in order to develop the 14 points. So when we think about the 4 areas, so there's first of all, the systems thinking. And I think there's a lot of development occurred in systems thinking. There's a lot of people who've done a lot of good work in terms of systems thinking and taking it forward. There's variation. Again, there's a lot of knowledge in that area, and there's a lot of development occurring in that area. And Don Wheeler's done an amazing job. And those of you who have not studied Don Wheeler's material, I would suggest you do so. He's recently had some health issues, and he's put a lot of his seminars and things online on YouTube, and you can just watch them for free. You can download his PDFs and you can go for it. And he's really got that piece really well developed. He's taken it the next step. Psychology has been a big area of work of a lot of people over time, and it's continuing to do so. And I think that area is continuing to develop. The area that's lacking is the theory of knowledge, how we gain knowledge, how we develop, how we get people to think. And I think that's one of the things we really need to do, is get people to think. How do we take the organizations forward? How do we develop, right? So if you think about your own organization, what stops you from being better? How do you overcome those obstacles? What knowledge do we need to bring in to assist that? How do we bring that knowledge in? How do we help the organization learn? There's lots of tools and techniques, but tools and techniques are not thinking. And what Deming was trying to work out was, how do we get people to think? How do we get people to challenge their norm, challenge their understanding? Yeah. So that's the way I think he would have developed further. There's a lot of chat going on.
Yeah, no,
Who's keeping an eye on the chat?
I'm keeping an eye on the chat. Augusto, you wanted to talk to Jackie about how was it working with Deming? As a matter
Yeah, sure.
There is a recorded version, my years with Deming. I'll pass on the video to you. But however, you can
Okay.
talk with her directly and put the question across and go for a chat.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Jackie.
Right.
Yeah, my biggest curiosity is what it was like to work directly with Dr. Deming, since his and how did that experience differ from the learning that we can and teachings that we can get from his books and our lectures. And next, in your view, which aspects of his philosophy remain most relevant today, especially in a fast, dynamic marketplace, and also increasingly demanding customers that change the world in a matter of minutes. So we don't have it's very difficult to create a business model that can accommodate the marketplace that we are living right now.
Yeah, I think we think of today as a very fast-paced, moving world. If you so from when Dr. Deming was born to when he was going to university at Yale, we developed the car, the radio, electricity. We developed telephones. We developed air flight. If we think our world is changing, I think our world is changing. Yes, I do think our world is changing, but it's a more subtle change. These are big dynamic changes that Deming experienced in the early part of his life, right? And I asked him once, and this will date it for you. I asked him once, what of all the inventions he saw, what was the one that amazed him the most? And it was actually the fax machine. The fact that he could write a note, put it through the fax machine, and a few minutes later get an answer. He just loved the fax machine. The fax machine was just like, he couldn't type. So working with computers was challenging, and they weren't as well developed as they are now, right? They weren't as intuitive. In terms of how did my experience working with him, how is it different? You're submerged in Deming's world. So I would go and I would be with him for 6 weeks. And during that period, we'd be doing 4-day seminars, 2-day seminars, consulting at places like Ford and General Motors. So you are completely submerged in that world, and you're hearing some of these things again and again. And it's actually quite interesting that what I felt was the first time I met him and I did a 4-day seminar, it put together a lot of pieces. I felt like I'd got these pieces of a puzzle, and going to Deming's 4-day seminar enabled me to put the puzzle pieces together and see a bigger picture and see things more holistically. Really helped me do that. But every time I worked with him, I got a deeper level of knowledge, a deeper level of understanding. And sometimes it was because of where we were working and what we were doing. But it's just so intense. I can't explain how intense the experience was. And Deming didn't sleep a lot, and it was exhausting, right? So you could be up 11, 12 o'clock at night and he'd be ready to go 5 o'clock in the morning. He'd be ready to go with that, you would be flying somewhere or going somewhere. So it was an exhausting experience. I used to sleep for I came back to Australia with an American colleague, and he claims that I was asleep before the plane took off, and he had to wake me up when we arrived in Melbourne. And at that time, it was a long flight. So it was an exhausting experience, but it was that you had that ability to really explore and really test your thinking on a level that you just don't get. And then, I never have since either. Teaching Deming's work takes you to another level as you go into different industries and explore different things. But it's being 24/7 and have him in there to go, Dr. Deming, when you said this, is that what you meant, or did you mean this? It's just different, right? Hard to explain. Does that answer your question, Augusta? Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, of course. It's fascinating. I understand your point. I also had the chance to work with some brilliant people, of course, more senior than myself. And sometimes I had the same feeling. But since you had the chance to work with such amazing individual, I believe it's much more profound.
Yeah. And it was. That's very true. It was. Did I answer your question, your other questions?
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
Yeah. So one thing that Deming really got people to think about is be focused on what your customer gets from your product, what they need from the product, not the product itself. He used to love the buggy whip. Do you know the buggy whip story? I don't know if some of you have come across it or not, but he talked about this buggy whip company that when he was growing up, so buggies are horse-drawn carriages. Everybody had one because that's how you got around when he was growing up, right? You had a horse and a cart, and the buggy whips were your method of acceleration, right? You cracked the whip and off the horse went, right? And as he says, they could still be in business today if they saw themselves as getting things to move faster, as in a form of accelerator. They could have still be in business today. Instead, they focused on refining the buggy whip. Well, I think we've all seen that with Nokia, right? Does anyone? Some of you are a bit young. But those of us who are a bit older remember this phone called a Nokia. And in fact, I have one. I didn't do this on purpose. I was just sorting through some stuff earlier. Here's a Nokia phone.
Yeah.
Right? Nokia phones were the most popular phone. They were just huge and they were really easy to use. And yet they got completely taken out of business by this phone, right? That type of smartphone, because they didn't evolve. They actually saw themselves as a communication device, whereas what we have now with us is something way beyond that, right? So it's about understanding your customers. And if you don't understand your customers, being focused on quarterly results, it's not going to get you very far, right? You have to understand, why do people use our service? What do they get from it? What is the next iterations, right? AI can make us smarter or dumber. It can put us closer to our customers or take us further away. And in a lot of cases, it's actually taking us further away because we think we can get the answers from AI, which you can't, right?
Yeah, of course, I believe it. One of the most important points, as you mentioned, Nokia, but previously also Ford said something similar. If I was asking my potential customers what they were needing, they would ask me faster horses.
Yeah.
So that's the question. You need to delve in the answer and find out what in your hand you can do to satisfy your customer. Not giving faster breeds of horses, but something that makes you go faster.
Yeah, well, once you understand, they want something to get from A to B. They want it to be convenient. So once you put that on it, then you're not, in Toyota have got we'll see if I can find it. Toyota have got this, they've got a really good statement about their organization. I was just writing an article for a magazine that I write for on constancy of purpose. And Toyota, what they talk about is Toyota will lead the future mobility society, enriching lives around the world with the safest and most responsible ways of moving people. Note, no mention of the word car, no mention of the word train, truck, bike, whatever. And they'd make boats as well. I don't really know that, but they make boats as well. They don't talk about that. What they're very focused on is our job is moving people from one area to another. And I think a lot of companies have got so bogged down in what they do that they've lost sight of what their fundamental need they're fulfilling with the customer.
True. Yeah, indeed.
It even happens in sport, right, as well. It happens amazingly in sport, right? People think, oh, well, we just want to win. Actually, people want a lot more than that. They want a sense of belonging. They want a sense of being part of it. It's not just about the winning bit. And we have a football team here. We're very, very successful about 20 years ago. And their number of members went down because the way they were playing was boring. It was not entertaining. The club thought that just winning was enough. Getting people being part of the group. They didn't think about that. As soon as you stop talking to your customers and you make assumptions, that's when it all starts to fall. We need to do a lot more of that talking.
Yeah, true. I was thinking also in another question, if I may.
Well, it's up to Dr. M. Dr. M's in charge, really.
No. Hey, Augusto, go ahead. I got a ticklish question for Jackie after that.
Yeah, of course. I believe we have to rethink the way we are preparing our people from school to college, and mostly business schools. Because we all noticed happened after COVID, that we experienced a universal bullwhip effect with the shortages of the raw materials and so on. Everything was missing. And I noticed that many people in charge of purchasing departments who were also well educated in business schools and so on, they were aware of what was the bullwhip effect, and they acted in that way.
Yeah.
So I was wondering myself, we are doing something wrong.
Yeah, and you know what I think it is? I think we've got focused on tools, techniques, methodology, and we've stopped using this. We're not thinking enough. We're not thinking about, well, what is the purpose of this? Right. So one of my customers, one of their suppliers, was trying to impress them with this new methodology that they'd got. So every time they put a customer complaint in, we got a album of documents telling us what they'd done about the problem, and it was like they just completely, so they were doing, they were going into the 5 whys, and they were doing cause and effects, and they were doing all sorts of things, lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of tools, but they weren't standing back and going, what are we trying to achieve? They were so busy doing the stuff that they lost the sight of the road that they were on, which is that constancy of purpose that Deming talks about, talked about, sorry, I should talk in the past tense. What he talked about was that long-term vision. Where do you want to go? Where do you want to end up? Where is the utopia for you, right? What is it that you're trying to achieve? And you can see in the Toyota statement, it's really clear, right? It's really clear. Lead the future mobility of society. We're going to move people better than anybody else, and we're going to do it safely and responsibly. So that's their vision. And then they then talk about we build people to build cars and all those things, good things, because that assists you in getting you in that direction. And I think when I go into organizations and ask them, well, what is your vision for the organization? Where are you trying to take the company? They start talking about stuff that shareholder profitability, They don't talk about customers.
Yeah.
So we're just not thinking, we're thinking financial instead of thinking, and what always I like to mess with people's heads, because money is a man-made fiction, right? It's just totally man-made. We created it as a way of commerce, but it's not like breathing, it's not essential. It's quite interesting that we have created this mayhem with this thing we call money. And in doing that, we've lost what we're trying to achieve, because we're so busy and focused on profits right now. Whether you believe in climate change or not, there is some evidence that we're doing damage to the planet. We're so busy focused on profits, the damage is just getting worse and worse. Oh, we can't stop that coal mine, that would affect profits. We'll open another coal mine. So we're not focused on the things that we've lost the focus because of this glitzy, shiny thing called money.
Jackie?
And I know we all need it to survive, and I know we all need it to fill our bellies. I do get that, but I just think that I think it's an example of a tool we're using that's helped us lose the focus.
Jackie?
Yeah, that's a big change.
Jackie, Dr. M here.
Yes, Dr. M, your session, not mine.
The thing is, you're going to defend 2 legends, right? Being awarded the Juran Medal,
Yes.
and having worked with Deming, look what is in the air. That Juran never talked to Deming, Deming never talked to Juran.
That's not true.
Wait. There's another.
Yes, that's not true.
Wait. Those are the hypes in the air, okay?
Yeah, it's just not true. It's just not true.
Okay, you got to justify yourself. You got to defend both. The other thing is this, that Deming never gave us any methods. Drive out fear. He never gave us methods. Juran gave us all the methods. Now, you have to defend both, Jackie. Hey, have I said anything wrong, Augusto, Kamal? Am I asking the right question the wrong time or the right question? Come on.
It's the right question in the right time.
You got to defend both of them for us.
Okay, so I think of Deming as the thinker. He's the leader and the thinker, and I think Juran was really good at developing processes and tools. That's how I view it. And when I was initially working with General Motors, before I was exposed to Deming, I was very into process and tools as well. And I spent a lot of time studying stuff from Juran. And his quality control handbook was my handbook. I loved that book with all my might. And then Deming put it on a higher plane for me in terms of thinking. So I think Deming is better at giving us the direction and the purpose for what we need to be doing.
Hey, come on, ask questions. You let Lucky go.
There's another one from Stone in the chat. Oh, there's more than that, I think.
Money is that's
yeah, I've got people thinking about money. Money is a tool. It's a tool. It's a tool. It's not the end, right? If you die a poor man or a multimillionaire, you're still dead, and living a good life. I think that one thing that's really fascinated me is the happiest people I've ever met have also been the poorest, which is actually quite interesting. So you start to think about, well, yeah, what is it that we actually want to achieve? And I think that's the important thing is understanding purpose individually, but understanding purpose as an organization, and then helping give everybody in your organization that focus and purpose so you're working together in the same direction. That's the important part. And we need to look at these KPIs and dashboards and say, do they help us with our purpose, or do they divide us? Do they, so when we see these numbers, and I don't think we spend enough time doing this, if I put a KPI in place, I need to sit there and say, what are the good things that I'm hoping to achieve out of that KPI? What am I hoping to achieve with it? What could be the negative implications of this KPI? What behavior might it encourage? So I need to understand the negatives and what could go wrong with the KPI. And I don't think we spend enough time thinking about, we're so busy collecting the data, analyzing it, and fiddling with the results that we don't consider it holistically enough, and whether that KPI is really driving us in the direction we want. You got another question?
Yeah, I have a question, although I know I have got a limited time. Where am I? Oh, yeah. Am I sharing this?
Yes, you are. Yeah.
Oh, God, what happens when I do that? Yeah, this is from 12 Days to Deming, and I was wondering, because Deming, and he was always evolving. So this is what Henry Neve has said, the early stages and 1920 stages and 1950 to 1960 theory of systems. When people talk about Deming, or they got exposed to Deming in various parts of the world, are they getting stuck in certain year segments of what he's talked at that point of time, and they're literally not moved with him? And I don't know whether I'm coming out, is my question straight, or I'm getting confused myself?
And I think Deming wants us to continue to evolve and to continue. I mean, the system of profound knowledge, as I talked about before, is those 4 areas of knowledge, and he wanted those areas to continue to evolve. And I think they can continue to evolve. But we have to work together to make that happen. So they need to evolve in your organization. I think one of the things that Dr. Deming would be very sad about is that we're treating people more and more like a commodity, not treating them as an important part of our organizations. I'm seeing more of this, that we treat people as commodities rather than an important part of the companies and an important part of us moving forward. So there's work to be done in all of the areas of profound knowledge, and every organization, has got its challenges in all 4 areas. I think we talk about systems a lot. We talk about variation and data a lot. We don't talk about knowledge and psychology. We put to human resources, or whatever you'd like to call it, people and culture, whatever you'd like to call the department. We don't consider teaching people about psychology, teaching people about leadership of people, and about coaching people and working with people. enough.
Yeah, why I'm asking you this is because I don't hear Japanese talk about profound knowledge, or I don't hear them talk about the 14 points.
So,
Why do they get stuck in 1950 or 60? Are they stuck there? Or what does that?
no, not at all. Jussie is just so Jussie is, the Japanese Union of Scientists and Engineers, and they're the ones that are associated with the Deming Prize, etc. And actually, they've been talking about that they feel they got lost after Deming died. They think that they've got a bit lost and that they're coming back to it. And they're beginning to realize what they've lost and are trying to get more back to understanding what Deming was teaching them. Some organizations have maintained it really well. Some organizations haven't. But Jussie has recognized that Japan needs to do better in a number of these areas, which is really interesting. So there's some articles that Jussie has written recently about this, that they've got captivated by the West and our love of short-termism. So it's interesting. It's a lot easier to, say, do a short-term goal of making money and not have to focus on the long term. So much easier. And unfortunately, our society is becoming a lot more focused that way. Governmental cycles. So our government, we re-elect our government every 3 years. Bear in mind that you have to vote as well. So every 3 years we go, and 3 years is not long enough. 3 years is not long enough for a government to actually make any structural changes. And how are you going to develop things that are involved in the long term? So long-term projects are not happening the way they should in Australia because we don't have the government's long-term focus to do that, because we're on short cycles. Now, I'm not suggesting any government's in charge for 50 years, don't get me wrong, but you need some way of coming together and bringing together and saying, well, this is a long-term focus for the country as a whole. Otherwise, you don't do the big projects. Right, so one of the busiest air routes in the world is in Australia. I don't know whether you guys are aware of this, but we've not got many people here, right? There's 20 odd million of us in totality. And yet we have, let me just check it out, the 5th busiest route of aircraft travel in the world between Melbourne and Sydney. Now, wouldn't somebody build a train between those two cities that's fast? It's a no-brainer, and yet we still haven't got round to it. Been talking about it since the early 1950s, but we still haven't got around to it because we don't have that longevity in government to do it. So there's plenty of work to do out there, guys. Got to get people thinking longer term, people thinking about the constancy of purpose, how you bring people together, how you bring people on that journey. And the quarterly profits and the short-term stuff will take care of itself.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I got Jackie for you for an hour, and the hour is up. Now, it is between you and Jackie whether if you want to prolong it, right? So you can negotiate with Jackie if you want to prolong it. Otherwise, my deal is done. Okay?
I'm happy for a few minutes, but not much longer than that because I do have to get up early in the morning.
Yeah. Anything at last? Give us a minute or so, 60 seconds.
Okay.
Jim, let's hear something from you. Laura, nice of you to have turned up. Mustafa. Great. So thank you very much, Jackie. And
No worries.
Namaste. That's something wonderful. We don't waste. Namaste is for good morning, good evening, good night, and welcome, and see you again. Take care. Enjoy yourself. Wherever you're going tomorrow, have a good time, and then catch up with you, Jackie.
You too.
Okay.
Thank you for everybody for coming.
Oh, incidentally,
Thank
hold on. We are issuing certificates. So those who want a certificate signed by Jackie, just say want a certificate, and we'll issue a certificate of participation and not proficiency, because I have not understood Deming or Juran. Okay. So ask for it
Okay.
and we'll give you a signed certificate to you. Okay.
Thank you, all of you.
Thank
you
you.
so much, Dr.
Thank you, Jackie.
Dr.
No worries.
Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you.
Thank you.